Please be seated. The court is now back in session, and again, I hand the floor to the Counsel for Key Sampon to continue to present more key documents. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had stopped at the example of Kompong Shnang and the way that things were perceived on the Vietnamese side. And I would like to mention another excerpt without quoting from it, another excerpt from Philip Short's book, which speaks about the same elements relative to how Vietnam dealt with dissidents. And we can find this excerpt at French ERN 00639-952 and at English ERN 00396-587 onto the following page. And here what's described is the rapprochement between rapprochement with Hun Sen, Pen Sovan, etc., etc. And I was speaking about the importance of the diplomatic war on top of the war on the field. And when Stephen Morris testified, he spoke about the close relations between the German Democratic Republic and Vietnam. And therefore, I'd like to mention a document which comes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the GDR, document E3/1773. And this is an excerpt that I had not used yet, and which is dated 2 January 1978, in which East Germany explains how Vietnam and its allies made sure that Democratic Kampuchea's position would not be accepted by Russia and by East Germany, diplomatically speaking. And we can find this excerpt at English ERN, and I will quote from this document in English because there is no French version, 01246921. And Khmer, it begins at ERN 01320164 on to the following page. And I'm going to quote in English.
On 31st December 77, the DK government published a declaration announcing that relations with the SRV were being severed and maliciously blaming the SRV for the aggression. The declaration, with a covering letter from the DK state leadership addressed to Comrade Eric Honecker, Willy Stopp, and Oscar Fischer, was sent to our embassy in Peking. In agreement with the Soviet ambassador, who had not received the declaration, receipt of the declaration was declined. On 31st December 77, the SRV Foreign Ministry informed ambassadors of socialist countries of the deteriorating situation. Fighting is continuing. End of quote.
So it's interesting to see here that the fighting on the field and the diplomatic coup that Democratic Kampuchea tried to do through this statement declaring rupture of diplomatic ties with East Germany and the Soviet Union did not work. And we show how the different sides were being created then. And a certain number, well, the fighting can also take place at the media level. And I'd like to refer you to certain FIBIS documents without quoting from them directly. For example, in 1978, I'm thinking about document E3/267, a document. This document, which is an article of 3 January 1978, in fact, it's an article in the Far Eastern Relations Journal, document E3/293. It's a FIBIS document of July 1978. And let me just maybe read out the ERNs. So for E3/267, it's Khmer ERN. That goes from S00680574 to 586. French S00008724 to 733. And document E3/293 is a FIBIS report of July 1978, Khmer ERN 007211195, on to the following pages. English 0016969, on to the following page. And in French 00756 543 to 548. And finally, another FIBIS series, E3/1369, Khmer 01303-409, English 012188822, and French 00701-766. On to the following page. And this is a FIBIS report of March 1978. All of this to show you the different statements that were made by the various press news agencies. And of course, for 6 January 1978, we have the statement of the spokesperson of the Ministry of Propaganda and Information of Democratic Kampuchea. And I'd like to refer you to document E3/1263 at Khmer ERN 00234027230, and English 00337187 on to 89, and French 0008760 on all the way up to 635. So these are statements that denounce the attacks that Democratic Kampuchea underwent on the part of Vietnam. And there is also an interesting document that I'm going to quote from this time. However, it's a document coming or stemming from an analysis of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the German Democratic Republic. It's document E3/540, which only exists in English. And the ERN I'd like to look at is English, therefore 012469838. There's also Khmer 01320191. And this is a report dated 31 January 1978. And this is what is written regarding the border conflict. And I will quote in English.
The border conflict between Vietnam and Cambodia. Je vais citer,
I'm going to quote the excerpt that interests me, which is rather towards the end of the page. Page 38, page ending with 38 in English, and Khmer it is 0132-0192. And here what's being described are discussions and the possibility of negotiations. And this is what is stated.
It transpired from a conversation held at the Cambodian embassy in Hanoi that Phnom Penh claims that Vietnam is only willing to negotiate from a position of strength and is refusing to recognize current borders. This view rests on the fact that the legitimate borders between the two countries were established in 1939 by the French Protectorate of Cambodia and France as the representative of its colonies in Indochina. That erstwhile border demarcation was purportedly confirmed in writing during a visit of a delegation of the Provisional Government of the Republic of South Vietnam in 1967. A conversation with a member of the then RSV delegation revealed that such an agreement had indeed been signed. That, notwithstanding, the Foreign Ministry of the SRV officially prohibited the Cambodian embassy from disseminating a book with a map of Cambodia. The purported reason given by the Vietnamese side was that it represents, bracket, an attack on Vietnam's sovereignty. End of quote.
I will quote another excerpt, and in English it's 01246939. And it's interesting because this excerpt dates back to 31 January 1978, and when the question was put to Stephen Morris regarding the desire to negotiate in 1978 on the part of Vietnam, he answered that based on his research at the end of 1977, there was absolutely no desire to negotiate on both sides, or in any case, not on the Vietnamese side. And he said that the reasons or the negotiating conditions discussed by both countries were unacceptable on both sides. So I'm placing this quote back in its context because here, I'm quoting from the report from the German Democratic Republic, and this is what is said regarding the official position of Vietnam at the year end that I mentioned, 01246394 in English, and in Khmer 01320194.
Je cite en anglais.
And I will quote in English.
Confidential reports state that the SRV side is striving for a solution of the kind that would enable the remaining patriotic forces of Cambodia to seize the initiative and wrest power from Pol Pot and his followers. Of the current group of 5 in Phnom Penh, Politburo member Nguyen Phia alone has yet to compromise himself directly vis-à-vis the SRV.
Aside from the fact that this refers to what was being said by Vietnam's attempts of rapprochement with the government of Democratic Cambodia, here what's interesting to see is that the German Democratic Republic noted that in January 1978 that Vietnam made its decision to support a possible overthrow of the DK regime, and if they were public declarations about negotiating, well, negotiations were no longer being considered. Now, on the DK side, in 1978, again, at the beginning of 78, January, and we know that in January 1978, the Vietnamese troops withdrew because it didn't look good for them to stay. And we can look at the different speeches that we were able to discuss here before the court, Pol Pot's speeches, and the famous speech of the 1 against 30, when Pol Pot speaks about the disparity in military forces. And we're not going to say, of course, that this is a speech that was realistic, 1 against 30, we remember that Prumsarat spoke about this speech as being a way to encourage the Cambodian army to fight. But if we do not read this speech on the basis or in the context of what was happening elsewhere, that is to say, the reason Democratic Kampuchea made public the armed conflict with Vietnam was because so that there may be an international reaction, or in any case a reaction of its allies, to try to stop Vietnam from attacking. If we do not understand that the speech is part of that context, well, then we will not see how this speech is relevant. Now, however, regarding the 1 against 30, again, it's important to remind, and we saw this in the speech, which is in the revolutionary flag issue, which was used at length. And so we still say that this was not a call for genocide, as maybe the prosecution interpreted it during the key document hearing. For the Vietnamese segment, but on the contrary, an urge to encourage an army that was weak in the face of Vietnam and less well armed, and that the idea here was to try to take advantage of this Vietnamese withdrawal to boost the morale of the Cambodian troops. And it's interesting to see that in another document, in a CPK document of February, it's a revolutionary flag document of February 1978, even if they're boasting a little bit about the victory of January 1978, or supposed victory, in this document E3/744 at French ERN 00538-948, at English ERN 0046040067, and Khmer 0006445. It's interesting, therefore, to note there that the issue of Cambodia's small size, and also of the fact that it's not at all in Cambodia's interest to attack a country that's stronger than it. And it's interesting to see that this idea is mentioned, and especially in a document of internal propaganda. And this is something, therefore, that was said by the CPK. And this is what is said. If the Vietnamese size stopped trying to subvert us and to shoot at us, to fire rockets and to invade democratic Kampuchea by completely eliminating the doctrine of big countries in relation to Cambodia, the principle of the Indo-Chinese Federation of Vietnam, the principle of the unique party, of the unique country within Indochina, which is at the root of the Vietnamese repressive policies, policies of threats as well, and of subversion, and of invasion, expansion, territory swallowing, there would then be no conflict if this didn't exist. And friendship could really grow and would grow stronger as over time. This is an objective on the part of our government and on the part of our people who are so small that they have absolutely no reason trying to pick a fight with anyone. They only want peace and independence, and they only want their territorial integrity to be respected. That's all. End of quote. Then come, putting you back in the context, reports and telegrams on the situation on the field. And I'm not going to dwell on this because there are a certain number of telegrams that were already mentioned, but I would like to refer you to, in particular, to telegram E3/913, which is a telegram of 15 January 1978, signed by Pong, and a document E3/860, which is a report to Bong 9 of Unit 05, and it's dated 15 April 1978. And I'd like to refer you to E3/946, which is in telegram 20 at the situation with the enemy at Pretonle on 26 January 1978. And then there's a general report E3/862, which is a report on the situation in all areas in the first week of May 1978, and we see the different clashes and the different places where there was armed confrontation. And now we're coming to the end of this period of 1978, and we know that this is towards the end of the regime. In October 1978, there is Douglas Pike's report, E3/270, which analyzes the Vietnamese-Cambodian conflict for the U.S. Congress. And it's true that this document is interesting as a whole because it has the merit of providing the vision of the different protagonists, and with an analysis, when we look at it in retrospect, that's quite interesting and that's quite exact, in fact, quite accurate. And it's interesting here to see that on the U.S. side, in October 1978, they did not see, or they did not see any rapid solution to the conflict. And this is what we see in the conclusions of this report. And we can see this as well. We can see this at the last page of this report, French ERN 003444748, English 00187396. And it's interesting to see that in all solutions that were considered, at point 10, Douglas Pike considers the following: the most probable outcome of this war will be an undetermined prolonged extension of this war, that is to say, an indecisive alternance between intensification and milder periods, and second of all, the transformation of Cambodia into a client state. And this is an attractive prospect for Vietnam, but presents many dangers. And the third most probable outcome is the negotiation of a solution which could materialize, but there are many, many obstacles for this to happen. End of quote. And this is the crystallization of what the Cold War was. That is to say, the Americans, who did not have any close ties with Vietnam, did not obtain the same information as the Russians. That is to say, that there was indeed a plan well before October 1978 for a much swifter intervention than what this American analyst was considering. In any case, I'd like to refer you to point 5 that we can find at the conclusion of this report, in which he draws an analysis of the border war, and he says, it's a French ERN 003444747, at English ERN 00187396, where he says the following: the present border war which is actually intersigned communist conflict, has been going on since at least 1970. Neither side can be condemned as instigator. Neither is simply a victim. End of quote. And I'd like to refer you as well to, I'm backtracking a little bit here, I'd like to refer you to the different releases that were made by the people in charge in Democratic Cambodia, in particular an interview of Pol Pot that was given to Yugoslav journalists, I believe, document E3/1583 that we can find at Khmer ERN 003349330, and on the following pages at English ERN S 00011305, and the following pages, and at French ERN S 00763961, and the following pages. And also a press release from the Ministry of Propaganda and Information of Democratic Kampuchea of May 1978. And it's interesting to look at this document, E3/9378. And here again, let me slow down a little bit. This is a press release from the Ministry of Propaganda and Information of Democratic Kampuchea of May 1978. Khmer ERN 00224493 to 95. English 00337920 to 1, and French 00076146 to 148. And also the press articles and the releases that we can find dated July 1978 at document in the Far Eastern Relations documents E3/7306. And here, this is a media war and diplomatic war, once again, on top of what was happening on the field. And I forgot, in fact, mentioning when I was speaking about Douglas Pike's report, I forgot to speak about this lack of visibility of what was actually being prepared between Vietnam and Cambodia, and the reason why when Elizabeth Becker came to testify, the American Secret Service said that there was no problem, that she could go to Democratic Kampuchea, and that a priori there was no imminent war to fear. That's what she was told. And another element which demonstrates the escalation of the fighting on the field as well as in the media, and these are two documents, E3/726, which is an article from the Washington Post describing reports on an internal rebellion, and also describing Hanoi's role in this rebellion. So this is a perfect illustration of what was said during the hearing, and also of what was said by Philip Short, as well as what is confirmed in the excerpt that I read to you earlier from Mosyakov's report, and also document E3/2370, Far Eastern Relations, a document from 5 December 1978. We're coming close to the end. Khmer, you're in 00251 353 to 356. English 00187375 to 397. French ERN 00344 to 748, and this covers several weeks. It covers the different releases that were made either by Hanoi or Phnom Penh, which demonstrate the escalation of the fighting.
We're now coming up to December 1978, and we also have what TCW 1065 said about the Cambodian National United Front, and we find here the presentation of this movement officially in document E3/7310 at the ERN, which begins in English at S000013294 and in Khmer S011375152. And we see a declaration made by the movement, the various signatories, people who are present, and who confirm what TCW 1065 said about this meeting of the beginning of December 1978 in the presence, and here I'm quoting in English S0001325 in the presence of Eng Samrin, Chisim, Rosamai, Matli, Bunmi, Hunsan, Madame Min Samen, Mi Samlong, Nei Samon, Head Mong Long Sim, M Samrin, Chekkana, Chenven, and Praksun. And then follows a more detailed declaration of the platform of the movement. And the witness had told us that it had been established following a training at Ho Chi Minh. So we're still here in December 1975. And then into January, the Vietnamese troops had moved far into Democratic Kampuchea. And on 3 January 1979, a telegram was sent by Ieng Sari to the Security Council, to the President of the Security Council, asking for an intervention. And that is at ERN in French, 00224-428. In English, 00081-490, and in Khmer, 00224425, where he asks the following. First, to condemn Vietnam for having attacked Democratic Kampuchea and require or demand that Vietnam cease its attacks against Democratic Kampuchea, abandon its ambition to invade Democratic Kampuchea, and show through concrete actions its respect for the independence and territorial integrity of DK and the right of DK to decide its own fate. And second, to cease any assistance to Vietnam so that it cannot bolster its aggressive acts against Democratic Kampuchea. Third, support DK in their just fight to liberate themselves. And then there is a statement of 4 January 1979 by Pol Pot that we find in E3/11. But that's a swan song, as I said before. It was already the end of Democratic Kampuchea. And just so we have a full picture, because once again it's a new chapter that opens in the history of Cambodia, I just want to refer to an excerpt from Philip Short, which talks about the arrival of the Vietnamese in Cambodia. And then what follows, and we find this in document E3/9, ERN in French, 00639-988, ERN in English, 00396-625. And here is what is written. In January 1979, an overwhelming majority of Cambodians welcomed the Vietnamese as liberators. They had been considered as hereditary enemies, but the Khmer Rouge regime was such that any other solution was preferable. The Vietnamese would fully exploit that situation. The Vietnamese army would claim that they hadn't come into Cambodia to occupy it, but to deliver the Cambodian people from slavery imposed by a fascist regime which imposed a genocidal massacre and famine. This was, of course, completely false. The atrocities of the Khmer Rouge hadn't bothered the Vietnamese at all until they decreed that Pol Pot was threatening their national interests, but the notion of humanitarianism would influence foreign opinion. And for some time would also have an influence on opinions even within Cambodia. Human gratitude is nevertheless ephemeral. Only a few months of Vietnamese occupation were necessary so that it would become undesirable, end quote. And just to conclude, I think it's nevertheless important to recall that this chapter of Cambodian history, which ended this armed conflict, at least for this chamber, was then followed by, and here I'll refer to a General Assembly declaration on the state of democratic Kampuchea, which had become a concern for the United Nations, specifically following what they had received, the documents they had received, and specifically from Sihanouk, and here I'm talking about document E3/247, which is a description of democratic Kampuchea in 79. So I'm coming to the end of my key documents presentation, and of course I will continue to bring up these issues and the responses Monday in responding to the prosecution.
President, thank you. It is now time for the adjournment, and the Chamber will resume its hearing on Monday, 7 November 2016 at 9 a.m. On Monday, the Chamber will continue the presentation of key documents. And on Monday, the floor will be given to the co-lead lawyers for civil party, co-prosecutor, and the defense team for Mr. Kisapon to make observations on the key documents presented today. And after the conclusion of the presentation of key documents on Monday, the Chamber then proceeds to conclude the testimony of 2 TCW 1065. Security personnel are instructed to bring Nguyen Chi and Kisapon back to the ECCC's detention facility and have them return into the courtroom on Monday, 7 November 2016 before 9 a.m. The hearing is adjourned.